you stop, look, and listen. What is the inner thought patterns? What is their evaluation criteria? What are their values? How do they think? What makes them decide that this rock will be my pet rock? Because clearly you can create material success. I said, well, you're going to have to leave some of your belief systems, even temporarily. Are you all willing to look at many different ways of solving problems? Some of them could be. And get this, what I'm about to say to you next. Are you willing to go way out there? So like I said, the board will be used to teach you a process of modeling. And NLP really came out of modeling, which was if you can detect the patterns, thought systems, physiology, meta programs, values, and some other things of someone who's getting the results that you would like more of, then you can get their results in similar results in less than 50% of the time. It's going to be used to teach you that process of modeling. This is something you can decide. You can learn the content of NLP or you can transform yourself. But ideally, you're doing both to a degree because there is. But where is your focus more at? Now, I had these many years ago. I had to look after a lot of children, like they were from the family and they were home, and I was alone with them, and I had to give them enough activities to do. And one of the things I asked them to do was to go out into the backyard and find pet rocks, like find interesting rocks and choose a pet rock. So I sent them out. I said, okay, you go and look for this and you'll find, because I was very interested in knowing what is the inner thought patterns? What is their evaluation criteria? What are their values? How do they think? What makes them decide that this rock will be my pet rock? And I also thought it will keep them busy. There's a lot of rocks in the backyard. So send them out there and they're out there and they're looking. And one thing I told them was, as you get out there, just stop, look, and listen. There's something I wanted to tell them because very important when you're looking for something, you stop, look, and listen. I said to them, before you decide what rock should be your pet rock that you feel a connection with. But I told them, so get out there, make sure you stop, look, and listen. It's interesting how different decisions are when somebody would just stop, look, and listen, to be more conscious. There's these kids out there, they're looking for these pet rocks and they're looking everywhere and they're going, yeah, I found this one and I found this one. And they were looking so excited and they're just looking at these crazy rocks and different colors. And I'm observing them from far because I very enjoy observing and what people do. And these kids are just talking to each other about it. And, it was interesting how some of them were doing what I told them, which was to stop, look, and listen. And some of them just unconsciously running around, just picking up whatever and being subject to their reactions. And then this one kid, what he found was something that I had not contemplated. And what he said after that, people say all sorts of things, right? But it's quite interesting what had happened there. And, I had a client once and he wanted to really have a good relationship. He wanted to find the right partner. And so he went and registered on one of these, because I was doing some relationship coaching work with him and he was quite successful and he was not meeting the right person. And this was really consuming him. And so I asked him to, join one of those dating websites, where you can find people, not Tinder, like the day, you can find a part, the matchmaking for the sites. And so he went on there and he put all this criteria in, it should be, for example, you're a female and should be living here, should be this age group, should have these interests. And then he chose the location, which was just Sydney. I remember it was Sydney, Australia. And he said, but only one part of Sydney, right? And then he put all that in and he clicks the submit button, and he gets a message. And it said, please widen your criteria. He goes, what? So he picks a certain part of the criteria and he changes it and he expands it to a larger geographical area, more of Sydney. And then he clicks on submit because, he was a little bit picky and he had all these different things that, what kind of interest they should have, whatever. And he clicks submit and it says, please widen your criteria. And he goes, it's ridiculous. He goes, you know what, screw it. Because he was thinking like, how will I meet this person if they live too far from me? But he's not realizing you have so many other criterias, my man. You gotta have something has to give. So he goes back, pulls it up and he starts clicking. And then he puts in the state where Sydney is, New South Wales, 6 million people. And he clicks submit. It says, please widen your criteria. Now he's getting a bit pissed off. He's like, this is right. You're telling me there's not a single person in a state of 6 million people that meets my criteria, right? He was ignoring some of the other things that he was listing in there, some of the other limitations he was putting, some of the other stories, some of the other requirements he was holding on to. So he adds another city, the second largest city of Australia, Melbourne. He says Sydney and Melbourne. He said, now that's 11 million people. And he fixes it. He goes, that's it. I've got it now. How can it not? And he clicks the submit button. And it says, what does it say? Please widen your criteria. Interesting. Then he goes, screw this. Something is wrong here. And he says, all of Australia, 26 million people, because he wanted to test what is going on. And he clicks submit. And it says, please widen your criteria. This time he nearly had, you know, a computer rage, that he was going to throw it. And he's telling me about it. And I said, well, hang on, show me what else have you got listed on there. And you're not going to believe what he had put in as one of the requirements. You're not going to believe it. In fact, clients always do these sort of things. Like another client, he was in, he was very, very successful. He was so successful, he had been in banking all his life. And get this, what I'm about to say to you next. He decided to open his own bank. He had access to $150 million in credit and he had all the experience. And he came to me. And I said, what do you want? I said, what is the issue? You seem to have had so much wealth you've created. You've been successful in business. You've been successful in executive. You're now planning to open your own bank. What would you like from me? He says, well, I want to open this bank and I have access to credit, but something doesn't feel right. I said, what is it? He said, I feel I'm here to do something. I know I can do this, but I'm just feeling. I said, tell me more. And he said, when he was little, he was from Sri Lanka. So he was originally, and when he was little, they had this ceremonies type of things and in the family. And one time they had this gathering, this particular ceremony, and what they all had to do, that all the family and the friends, and they all had to say there were certain chants being said. And then they had to write on paper, on a piece of paper, what it is they wanted in their lives. So there's some chanting that went on, some ceremonies, and they really had to write down what they wanted. And then they were all asked to go and put that piece of paper inside a cup of water, a glass of water. So he's telling me about this story. And he said he took this and he saw everybody put their piece of paper inside the glass of water. And he said, so did I. He said, and then they asked us to drink that water. And he said there was something very incredible going on. As they all started to reach to the water was trembling. There was vibrations through it. And he said, then they all drank the water. He said, but I didn't. Okay. I said, why didn't you drink it? He said, it's too out there for me. And he said, now, as I've grown up, I've noticed, I've spoken to a lot of those people, and they're all telling me that what they wrote down has come true. So he said, had I written something, it would have been something different to running a bank. And I feel worried that I'm doing these things, but I'm not really following my true purpose, my true path. I said, what is that? He goes, I want to do something on a bigger scale that helps a lot of people. I said, well, wouldn't banking do that? He goes, not really, not the way I want to do it. And he's a super business guy, right? Very business driven, very business savvy. I said, okay, well, there are things we can do to get you connected because it's a big move he's about to make. And I don't want him to make a wrong move if it doesn't feel right. I said, I'm going to have to do some processes. Some of them come from master's level, by the way. I'm going to have to do some of these processes. But I said, I know you've been in business, but it's going to mean that you're going to have to go way out there. Are you willing to go way out there? And he says, what do you mean by way out there? I said, well, you're going to have to leave some of your belief systems, even temporarily, in order for me to do these processes. Because clearly you can create material success. But if you want something else, you're going to need to go way out there. Are you willing to go way out there? Well, he said something which puzzled me. So the question for you is, are you all willing to look at many different ways of solving problems? Some of them could be way out there. Emily says yes. That's a big fat yes right there. Okay. Sometimes we just have to suspend certain other things so we can go way out there and solve problems that the conscious mind cannot solve. Because the unconscious mind can really solve problems that quite a lot of problems the conscious mind cannot.